The scissor lift malfunctioned suddenly, pinning the worker against a crossbeam. He gasped desperately for air. He was seconds away from suffocating. Setting up an external ladder to reach him from the roof would take too long. Chief Pascal made a split-second decision. He'd climb the broken lift himself. Shrugging off his coat, he started scaling the metal frame barehanded. His crew stared in shock. Since when did cautious Pascal become such a daredevil? Kelly scrambled up right behind him, ready to assist. As they climbed, a warehouse worker suddenly ran up and started dismantling the control box. "Stop," Stella shouted. "Maybe it blew a fuse," the man said. "No! Lower it now or you'll crush my guys," Stella snapped. "Back up." Just then, Pascal's foot slipped on the lift. For one terrifying moment, he dangled helplessly in midair. The crew below held their breath, but Pascal kept his cool. Regaining his footing, he hauled himself up the remaining rails. Kelly reached the platform right behind him. The trapped worker was wedged tight. They'd need to cut the rails. Kelly lowered a rope. Hoisting up an angle grinder, with careful precision, Pascal sliced through several support bars. Finally, the worker was free. The firefighters got an alert to put out a fire, but when they arrived something felt off. There wasn't a single flame in sight. Suddenly a group of people came running out of the building and someone had set up a gun on the rooftop.
Hey, go back! No! Go right!
The firefighters were totally confused. What was going on? Luckily, the gun on the roof jammed. Taking advantage of the moment, the firefighters rushed forward and pulled the wounded victims behind the fire truck for cover. They were safe for now, but the ones inside the building were in real danger. Lieutenant Casey had led a team in to fight the fire, but it turned out the fire alarm was fake. They had walked right into a terrorist trap. Chief Bowden told them over the radio to find a safe place to hide and wait for police backup. Inside, the terrorists had already begun their terrifying hunt. They shot at anything that moved. Casey hid in a corner, barely breathing, afraid the attackers would find him. Then he heard footsteps coming down the stairwell. He only had a crowbar. What could he do against someone with a gun? But he had no choice. He had to be ready to fight. Both firefighters jumped, but it was just Otis. Otis had found a safe hiding spot and came to bring Casey there. Meanwhile, two paramedics weren't so lucky. They had gotten separated from the group, and from the sound of gunfire, the killers were getting closer and closer. They could even hear the screams from the next room. As the gunman approached their door, Sylvie quickly signaled to Chili to turn off the radio. Moments later, the attacker entered the room. The two of them hid behind a table, not daring to make a sound. The gunman stepped closer, then suddenly stopped. He seemed to hear something outside, so he turned around and walked out. Someone else lost their life, but the two women could only stay silent, too afraid to even cry. But the terrorists weren't done. Tired of the hunt, they switched tactics. They sabotaged the fire system and set the building on fire to smoke everyone out. What they didn't know was that the building was full of firefighters. To most people, it was a death trap, but for them, it was actually a chance to survive. Through thick black smoke, Casey raised a thermal imaging device and led the group toward the exit. Everyone moved slowly and quietly, step by step. Then suddenly, a terrorist appeared at the end of the hallway, gun in hand, staring in their direction. Casey quickly motioned for silence. Thanks to the smoke, the gunman didn't spot them, and eventually walked away. Everyone let out a deep breath. The rest of the path was clear. They reached the exit quickly. By the time the terrorists heard noise and came chasing, they only saw the backs of the firefighters escaping. Casey and his team made it out alive, but two paramedics were still in danger. Thinking it was safe, they came out to help the wounded, but when they looked up, a terrorist was already aiming a gun at them. They thought it was the end, but suddenly, the gunman dropped to the ground. A SWAT team had arrived just in time and saved their lives. Something big happened. A loud electric saw noise suddenly came from the hospital room. When the doctors rushed over to check, they found a man actually sawing off his own leg. Though the doctors stopped him in time, the man's perfectly healthy leg was already ruined beyond repair. When he learned he'd be disabled for life, the man named Miller smiled with satisfaction.
Thank you.
Truth was, Miller had wanted to do this for a long time. He always felt his left foot didn't belong to him. It moved on its own, completely out of his control. Fed up, Miller went to the hospital and begged the doctors to amputate it. But since the leg looked perfectly fine, Dr. Bailey refused.
Please, I'm not crazy. I work at a bank. I'm not crazy.
No matter how hard Miller tried to prove he wasn't insane, he was sent to a psychiatrist instead, who diagnosed him with body dysmorphia. The psychiatrist had no real solution, just anti-anxiety meds to ease his distress.
Medication? I need a surgeon. A surgeon can take off the foot. Get me a surgeon.
Dr. Bailey told him, "I'm a surgeon, you won't convince me or any other surgeon to amputate a healthy limb." But she underestimated Miller's determination. While treating a patient who'd sawed off his own finger, the man suddenly said the saw was missing.
Yo, who took my saw?
Then the screech of an electric saw came from the next room. They rushed to the closed curtain where the noise was coming from, only to find Miller, who had already sawed off his own left foot, with just a flap of skin still holding it on. The orthopedic surgeon regretfully concluded that amputation was now necessary to prevent infection. Hearing this, Miller finally smiled. His wish had come true. The woman received a bouquet of flowers. She eagerly opened the greeting card expecting something pleasant. To her surprise, a large amount of powder sprayed out, and the card wrote, "Now you're really toxic." As the governor's assistant, the woman immediately realized she was the victim of a biological attack. She quickly dialed 911. Firefighters quickly arrived and simultaneously notified the FBI, the CDC, and a mobile laboratory. Captain and the others dressed up in their hazmat suits arrived at the woman's office. She explained that there was powder on her skin and in her lungs, but fortunately she felt no discomfort yet. The captain instructed a paramedic to conduct a preliminary examination and collect a sample of the powder for testing in the lab. They set up a decontamination shower on site for the woman. Outside the Capitol building, the cops were questioning everyone inside. They needed to find the flower delivery guy quickly. The captain reassured her, saying it might just be a prank as they had encountered similar situations before. However, the woman remained worried. The captain explained that if it was a biological attack, based on the nature of the powder, she might have been exposed to either treatable anthrax or untreatable ricin, which could lead to hemorrhaging and death. Feeling desperate, the woman could only await the lab result. While a firefighter fetched supplies from the truck, he spotted the flower delivery guy and shouted that he found the terrorist. Upon apprehension, the guy claimed to be an intern delivering mail, unaware of the origin of the flowers. Suddenly, he started bleeding from his nose and collapsed. A firefighter rushed to help, updating the paramedic on the situation. The paramedic warned them to stay away from the delivery guy, suspecting hemorrhaging and biohazard risks. Upon learning this, the woman's despair deepened, leaving the captain unsure how to console her.
Bad news, I'm guessing.
In a dramatic turn of events, the lab results arrived.
Abstract, come in.
Go ahead.
Cornstarch.
Come again?
That powder that they hit your lady with ain't nothing but cornstarch.
Initially surprised, everyone turned relieved, realizing it was just a prank. However, the mystery remained regarding the delivery guy's situation. The firefighter noticed his nosebleed had stopped. He probably fainted at the sight of his own blood. Indeed, a pneumonia snap woke him up.
Oh my God.
Paramedic Shane got into a car accident. Dr. Bailey was about to examine him, but Shane stopped her right away. He didn't want to be touched. He struggled to lie down on the gurney himself, then asked Bailey, "Can you get me a male doctor?" Bailey didn't think much of it at first. She figured maybe he was hurt in a private area, and just felt a little embarrassed. So she tried to reassure him, "We're all medical professionals. There's nothing to be shy about." Then she reached in to start the exam.
Do not touch me.
Luckily, Chief Richard walked in at that moment. Bailey quickly told him what Shane had requested, but to everyone's surprise, Shane looked at Richard and immediately refused again.
No.
I thought you said he wanted a male doctor.
He did.
I want another. I want a different doctor.
Bailey was confused, but Richard already understood.
You mean you want a white doctor?
He held back his frustration and calmly asked Bailey to take care of it. So Bailey brought in Dr. Young. She told Shane, "She's not black or white." Shane didn't look happy, but he didn't argue either. The moment Dr. Young lifted his shirt, a big swastika tattoo was staring her in the face. After the exam, they found he was bleeding internally and needed emergency surgery. But even on the way to the OR, Shane made another request.
No, I need to have at least one white doctor in that operating room, so you don't kill me on the table.
To get him to sign the consent form, Bailey had to agree. She brought in George, a white surgeon, and the operation began. Bailey kept glancing at the tattoo. In the end, she decided to slice right through the center of it. But that wasn't enough. After surgery, when it was time to stitch him up, Bailey stared at the tattoo again. It just rubbed her the wrong way. So she asked George, "Hey, does the skin here look uneven to you? If so, I might need to make another cut."
If I do that, this man's swastika tattoo might be unrecognizable.
When Shane woke up, he didn't feel too good looking at what was left of his tattoo.
She did this on purpose, right?
George didn't sugarcoat it. He told Shane, "Bailey saved your life based on her values. Maybe next time you look at that tattoo, you'll think about how to thank her."
Because between you and me, if you were dead, the world would be a better place.